Long day means long exposure to daylight. Short day means very short exposure to the daylight. Vernalization means the flowering of a plant actually depends on the temperature to which the plant is exposed to. During the spring season, the winter varieties actually attains growth. So that is why they cannot be planted in the spring. The flowering takes place in one season, the plant dies in the next season. So that is why they are called as the biennial. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to the last session of this chapter, that is Plant Growth and Development. I am Dr. Divya, Biology Faculty, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Mysuru, Temple of Excellence. In the previous session of this chapter, we had discussed about the important role of various hormones or plant growth regulators in the overall physiological development of the plant. So, wherein we discussed about the role of auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin, ethylene and abscisic acid on the overall development of the plant. In today's session of this chapter, we shall discuss about three important concepts, that is photoperiodism, vernalization and seed dormancy. So let's study with photoperiodism. So photoperiodism, it is nothing but the role of light and temperature. So in today's session, we are actually dealing with the role of light and temperature, both of them which are external factors. So light and temperature both are extrinsic factors or they are external factors. What role do they play in the flowering of a plant? So far we were studying about the shoot elongation, the root elongation and all that. We had not discussed about the flowering because flowering is also one aspect of the growth of a plant. So how exactly light and temperature plays a very important role in the flowering of a plant, we shall see. So among them, we shall first study photoperiodism. So photoperiodism is something to do with light. So here, some plants require a periodic exposure to light in order to induce flowering. So based on the time to which it is exposed to light, the flowering plants can be divided as long day plants, short day plants and day neutral plants. So here the response of the plant to different periods of day and night light is termed as photoperiodism. We know that the day and night cycle is usually 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of night, right? In that 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of night light, how much hours should the plant be exposed to in order for flowering is called as photoperiodism. It is a period of time to which the plant has to be exposed to light in order for it to flower. So it is called as the photoperiodism. So here we'll first talk about long day plants. So long day plants usually require the exposure to light for a period which exceeds the critical duration of that particular plant. So see, if you can see here, they have marked with the red line which is called as the critical photoperiod. So this is below the critical photoperiod and this is above the critical photoperiod. So here long day plants means they should be exposed above the critical photoperiod. Say for example here, the plant is being exposed to only 5 hours of daylight. Flowering will not take place because if 5 hours of daylight is the critical period, it should be exposed above the critical period. Say for example to 10 hours, that is more duration, that is above the critical period. Therefore, flowering will be initiated. Next, talking about the short day plants. So, short day plants, they should be exposed to light for a period that is less than the critical duration if the flowering has to be initiated or if the flowering has to occur. So, here also they have given critical photoperiod below. Here, short day plants, they should be exposed to light for below the critical photoperiod. Say for example here, the plant is being exposed above the photoperiod of 10 hours. Maybe it should be put in light only or kept in light only for 5 hours. It should not exceed the critical photoperiod. Always if the plant is exposed to light only for 5 hours, but if we exceed the critical period and subject the plant to more than 5 hours, maybe flowering will not occur. That is short day plants. So the name itself suggests long day means long exposure to daylight. Short day means very short exposure to the daylight. Next is day neutral plants. So day neutral plants means they do not depend on any of the critical period of light for which they have to be exposed to. If you keep it even for 1 hour also they will flower, even for 5 hours or 10 hours also they will flower. So that is why there is no correlation between exposure to light duration and also induction of flowering response in the day neutral plants. So that is why day neutral plants can mature at any time and they can flower at any time. So these are the day neutral plants. So we have here long day plants, then we have short day plants, and this is the day neutral plants. Day neutral plants. So this is about photoperiodism. So photoperiodism is nothing but the flowering of a plant depending on the duration of light to which the plant is exposed to, or the period of light to which the plant is exposed to is called as photoperiodism. Likewise, the flowering of a plant can also depend on the temperature, which is also a extrinsic factor. So when the temperature decides when the plant has to flower, it is called as vernalization. So we shall study about what vernalization is. So plants for which flowering is either quantitatively or qualitatively dependent on how much duration it is exposure to low temperature, it is called as vernalization. So here vernalization means the flowering of a plant actually depends on the temperature to which the plant is exposed to. So that is nothing but vernalization. And vernalization actually prevents the reproductive development late in the growing season. So here what happens? It actually delays the reproductive development of the plant, because we all know that if the plant has to flower, it has to reach its maturity, right? So if the maturity will be delayed to such a time until favorable temperature is given to that particular plant. So if the temperature is not suitable for that particular plant, vernalization will delay the reproductive development of the plant, and therefore it will delay the plant from reaching maturity very fast, so that the plants can have enough time to reach maturity and to flower when the favorable or optimum temperature required for that particular plant is being available. That is one of the concepts of vernalization. Here there are few examples of vernalization that we can consider. So some of the important food plants such as wheat, then barley, rye, they have two kinds of varieties. So one which actually matures and flowers in the winter, and the other one which matures and flowers in the spring. So they can be grown in the winter season. And those crops which give yield in the spring can be grown in the spring season, because if we need to get the yield, first the plants have to reach maturity and then they have to flower, right? After seed setting only we will get the yield. So that is why. So let's talk about these varieties one by one. One is the spring variety. So spring varieties are normally planted in the spring season and they come to produce, or they reach maturity and they flower and they produce grain before the end of the spring season, which is the growing season. So those are the spring varieties. Next, talking about the winter varieties. So winter varieties, they cannot be planted in the spring. Why? Because during the spring season, the winter varieties actually attains growth. So that is why they cannot be planted in the spring. So instead, they will be planted in the autumn season. So when they are planted in the autumn season, they will germinate, and once winter comes, they will come out as small seedlings, and during the spring season, they will start to grow, and during the somewhere around midsummer, they can be harvested. That is how the winter varieties are actually grown. So next we shall study some other examples of vernalization. So vernalization is also seen in biennial plants. So biennial plants means they grow once in 2 years. So 1 year they will grow, the other year they will not, and the other year they will again continue. So biennials, they are usually monocarpic in nature, and these plants usually flower in the first season and then they die in the second season. That is why they are called as biennials. They grow only once. The flowering takes place in one season, the plant dies in the next season. So that is why they are called as the biennials. The best examples are sugar beet, cabbages, carrots. They are some of the common biennials that are seen. And these biennial plants, if they are grown or if they are subjected to a cold treatment, it actually stimulates the photoperiodic flowering response. So biennials can also become annuals, or not just once in 2 years, but apart from that they can flower every year also. How is that possible? By treating the plants to very cold temperature so that photoperiodic flowering can occur. So this is one of the best example for vernalization in biennial plants, because vernalization is nothing but the flowering of the plants depending on temperature. So these biennials, they are subjected to cold treatment, then it can stimulate the photoperiodic flowering in that particular plant in spite of them being biennials. So this is about some of the examples of vernalization. So next let us see seed dormancy is, because right from the previous session we have been studying about seed dormancy, inducing of seed dormancy, breaking of seed dormancy and all that. So what is exactly the seed dormancy? So the seeds which actually fail to germinate even when external conditions are favorable is called as seed dormancy. So there are some seeds which require some external factors. Say for example, there are some seeds, if it has to germinate, it has to pass through the digestive tract of a particular animal. Then only it will germinate. So that is one reason. So there are various seeds which, in spite of having good environmental factors or good environmental condition, they will not germinate. They will remain dormant. So there are some factors which actually bring about the seed dormancy. What are those? We shall study. So one is having impermeable and hard seed coat. So some of the seeds, they have a very hard seed coat, therefore not letting the seeds to absorb moisture. If the seeds are not capable of absorbing moisture, then germination is not possible. So therefore impermeable and hard seed coat is one of the important factors. Next is some presence of some chemical inhibitors. So in the seed there will be presence of some chemical inhibitors such as abscisic acid, some phenolic acids and para-ascorbic acids. And abscisic acid is one such example which brings about seed dormancy, or they will prevent the seed from germination. We have studied about this in the previous session. Next is because of immature embryos. The embryos would have not been completely developed or reached maturity. Therefore, the seeds will remain dormant until the embryos reach the maturity. So these are the important factors that actually bring about seed dormancy. So next, talking about how to overcome this dormancy, how to break the dormancy of the seed and make that particular seed to germinate. I told you one of the reasons for the seed dormancy is the hard seed coat. So we can break the seed coat. So breaking the seed coat barrier in some of the seeds by mechanical forces such as maybe aberrations. Aberrations means what we can do is, sometimes if the seed coat is very hard, we can take a sandpaper and rub on the seed coat. So rub until the inner kernel part of that particular seed is exposed. So therefore the seeds can germinate properly. So by using knives, that is sandpapers, etc., we can break the seed coat. And in nature, these aberrations are caused by microbial action and also by passage through various digestive tract of animals, because I told you microbes also, they have the ability to decay the seeds, right? So when they start decaying the seeds, when the seed coat starts decaying, it will promote the germination of the seed. Just like that, some of the animals, their digestive tract is in such a way that it can dissolve the seed coat of that particular seed. So it will dissolve the seed coat, and once the seed comes out of the animal and through the dung, wherever the seeds fall, they can germinate very easily. Next is effect of inhibitory substances can be removed by subjecting the seeds to chilling conditions or by applying certain chemicals like gibberellic acid and nitrates. So one more factor we had studied that is responsible for bringing about seed dormancy, that is some chemical compounds such as abscisic acid, all that is present in the seed which will induce seed dormancy or which will promote or which will prevent the germination of the seeds. So here what we can do is we can remove the effect of such chemical compounds in the seed. How can we remove the effect of such chemical compounds? Either we can subject the seed to very cold temperatures or freezing temperatures or chilling condition, or we can apply certain chemicals like gibberellic acid and nitrates which will reduce the effect of the abscisic acid and it will promote the seeds to germinate. So that can also be done because gibberellic acid is one of the growth regulators, right? That is why. And also one more thing is the seed dormancy is because of environmental stresses. Then we can change the environmental conditions such as we can provide the optimum light, optimum temperature, and other methods can also be done in order to overcome seed dormancy. So this is how seed dormancy can be overcome. So I hope you understood this session well, wherein we discussed about important concepts such as photoperiodism and vernalization, wherein we learned that photoperiodism is nothing but the flowering of a plant when the plant is exposed to a definite period of light condition. And also we understood about vernalization. So vernalization is nothing but the flowering in a plant occurs when the plant is subjected to a particular temperature. And also we understood about seed dormancy, what are the factors that actually induces seed dormancy and what can we do in order to prevent seed dormancy or in order to break the seed dormancy so that the seeds can germinate. So with this, the chapter comes to an end. We shall meet again in the coming sessions with a new chapter. Thank you.